Hello, and welcome back to the fourth and final episode of Can I Kick It?, a series all about freestyle footbags. Apart from shoes, footbags are the other vital piece of equipment necessary to play the sport. In episode 2, we helped you buy your first entry-level footbag, but as you get deeper into the sport, you're going to want to upgrade to professional quality gear. Today on Passback, let's talk about professional stitchers in the freestyle footbag community and the footbags that they make. Footbags made by professional stitchers are far and away the highest quality that you can find, and that's primarily because stitchers are footbag players themselves. They use their own bags, and they know exactly what players want and need when it comes to footbags. Stitchers go to great efforts to experiment with and use high-quality materials such as fabrics, thread, and filler, and every aspect of a bag that you can imagine, from weight to size to fill ratio, has been carefully considered and finely crafted. The materials are one thing, but stitchers also spend a ton of time practicing their actual stitching techniques, precisely cutting panels, and generally making sure that every aspect of a bag is constructed with the utmost care. Now, as I've mentioned before, I'm not a stitcher myself, but we do have access to one of the most popular stitchers in the sport right now. So, Ivan, could you explain in a little more detail why professionally made footbags are held in such high regard?
Sure, I'd be glad to. As Matt mentioned, stitchers spent a lot of time making bags that they themselves want to play with. A lot of us started making bags because there weren't any available that played how we wanted them to, or the ones that were on the market were too fragile and broke quickly. Most stitchers treat this as a hobby and a labor of love, so we take our time making sure that the bags we sell are made to the best of our abilities. We're not in a rush to send out poor quality bags just to maximize profit. Most active stitchers have been around for several years, if not decades, and have made hundreds and thousands of bags in that time. So the stitching consistency and material selection for custom-made bags stems from thousands of hours of experience. Lastly, most stitchers today use laser cut panels and other aids to make their bags more consistent than ever, things that are often overlooked with mass-produced bags that you can buy in online stores.
In addition to maintaining consistency across all of the bags they make, every stitcher has their own particular style, which you'll start to pick up on as you become more familiar with bags in general and as you play with bags from various stitchers. A lot of experienced players can spot the stitcher of a bag just by playing with it, sometimes just by looking at it, purely because of how it plays and because of the various characteristics that define a bag. As you get more familiar, you'll likely gravitate towards your favorite one or two stitchers where you're guaranteed to get something that you like without having to think about it too much. Most stitchers also take custom orders, often at no extra cost, so in addition to high quality, you can also get exactly the color, weight, size, and design that you want. Of course, with the higher quality, skill, and dedicated work involved, professional footbags are more expensive than the ones we talked about in episode 2. Professional footbags usually sell for $25 to $35, and I can't imagine how many times in my career I've heard something like $30 for a hacky sack. I know it can seem like a lot for such a small thing if you've never bought one before, but they are absolutely worth every penny, especially when you consider how much use you will get out of a single bag. To understand the cost a little better, Ivan, can you give us a brief overview of your whole stitching process?
Every bag starts from the material you make it out of. Although most bags are made from the same mix of ultra suede, amaretto, and micro suede fabric, picking the right colors and patterns to make a bag that stalls consistently and breaks in quickly takes a considerable amount of experience. After working with a player to select the fabric they want for their bag, I cut the panels out on a laser cutter and begin stitching the bag together. This process takes between 1 and 7 hours, depending on the number of panels and complexity of the pattern. Each bag usually gets a few rolls around my desk and some kicks to make sure that it won't break when the player receives it, and then I give it a wash to make sure that the bag you get is clean and ready to play.
And as a reminder, if you're interested in learning how to stitch a footbag, Ivan has a full-length tutorial on his channel that we'll link to below. Now, one of the reasons we didn't recommend these bags in episode 2 is because while you can of course use a professional footbag to learn the basics of the sport, you don't really need to. You can learn the very basics with any equipment, and like with any new hobby, you probably want to start out small, especially if you're younger and don't have a ton of disposable income. You first got to figure out if you even like the sport enough to keep going, then once you're in a little deeper, you can invest in higher quality gear. Along with the higher price comes another potential turnoff for new players, which is the actual purchasing process. Hanya Mickiewicz, who we mentioned in episode 1, has a website with a traditional order form, and Planet Footbag, a player-run website, resells bags by Marco Hartig, but these are the exceptions. Most stitchers sell their bags privately, and to purchase one, you'll have to send them a DM on social media, describe what you want, and then drop them a PayPal payment. Now, for me, who's been in the sport for 15 years and has met many of the stitchers in the community, this is a very normal process, and I don't think much of it anymore. However, if I were new to the sport or the parent of a new player, I'd probably think this was a scam. I can assure you that it's not a scam, but I also wouldn't blame someone for being hesitant at first and wanting to stick to a trusted seller like the shops we mentioned in episode 2, or even Amazon or a local skate shop. When and if you purchase a bag directly from a stitcher, keep in mind that they're not a business with a customer service department. Every stitcher that I've ever interacted with has been incredibly generous and given the highest amount of support and guarantee of quality, but if your order is a day or two later than expected, just remember that they're only one person. Finding a stitcher can also be a little involved because you kind of just have to hang out in the social media spaces where Footbag is discussed, links in the description, and either wait for a stitcher to post a picture of some new inventory or ask around and people will be happy to point you in the right direction. You can also try out, buy, or possibly win bags from stitchers at Footbag events and tournaments, since stitchers commonly bring a lot of stock to choose from. However, in-person events aren't quite back to normal yet, and frankly, if you're into the sport enough to be going to events, you've probably already bought a bag from a stitcher online. Although the typical online purchasing process is not as streamlined as a traditional shop, it reminds you that you're part of a small but dedicated community which you're helping to support. The money you spend on these foot bags goes right back into the sport, often allowing a stitcher to continue making bags, covering travel costs to tournaments, or maybe even shifting time from their day job back into playing, because no one does this as their primary job. Everything in the world of Footbag is a passion project, but stitchers are probably the best example of that. If for nothing else, the cost of a professionally stitched bag rewards the significant time and effort that stitchers put into their creations. Speaking of which, Ivan, have you got any closing thoughts?
I think this video serves as a great primer for your first purchase of a foot bag from a professional stitcher. I'm really glad to share some of the process of making a bag, and I look forward to seeing more stitchers and players buying from stitchers in the future. Some of my best moments in Footbag have come from having the opportunity to see how happy people are when they play with bags that I've made. And that really makes all the attention to detail and trial and error worth it as a stitcher.
That concludes the fourth and final episode of Can I Kick It? And at this point, you should know everything that you need to in order to get started buying, maintaining, and playing with freestyle footbags. From all of us here at Passback, thank you so much for watching this short series, and please let us know if there are any topics about footbags that you still want more information on. Until then, good luck finding your next favorite bag, and see you next time.